So, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to see many of you today. Can you just please, just let me know whether you can hear me or not. I just want to double check everything is.
I want to make sure I could be heard. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Marjan. Otherwise, this interview wasn't going to go well. So my name is Filippo Lorenzin, and I am a curator of MoCDA, Museum of Contemporary Digital Art. Thank you for coming to the opening of Digital Embodiments and Interventions, a solo exhibition of pioneering artist Marjan Moghaddam. I want to thank MoCDA for hosting the exhibition and Andrea Isola, our exhibition designer, for the wonderful work he has done with the floor plan. Of course, I'm grateful to the Decentraland team and Bobby in particular for the great support and insightful advice they provided to ensure this exhibition could look its best. I'm honored to have collaborated with Marjan, so please let me tell you something about the exhibition. Well, first of all, Marjan, do you want to say hi to our public?
Walk through and talk with Filippo and I, and it's great to see everyone, and I can hardly wait to get a chance to, talk to everyone after the tour.
All right, so working in the field of digital-based art since the 1980s, Marjan explored the creative potential of digital tools with works that paved the way to approaches and styles that influenced other artists working in this field. Marjan's prolific exhibition history with computer art goes back to the 1980s, and she was the featured artist for the launch of the first New York commercial Internet Art Gallery in 1996. Her works are held in public and private collections, and she continues to create public art commissions in the US and here in Europe. Digital Embodiments and Interventions feature some of Marjan's most groundbreaking works, covering a period that goes from the 1980s to 2021. While focusing on her research, the exhibition aims at offering an insight into the theoretical and technical changes that happened over the last 30 years in art and digital culture, changes that Marjan often foreseen in her works. The exhibition is composed of 3 rooms. In the first, you will find a selection of works she made from the 1980s to, let's say, 2015, tied together by some recurrent themes we will discuss later with Marjan. The second room is dedicated to a single work that plays an important role in her research, being a liminal project that thematically connects her first phase with her latest works. Lastly, but not last but not least, the third room explores her art hacks, interventions in AR that challenge the traditional concept of exhibition space. A few words about MoCDA. Digital Embodiments and Interventions follows the curatorial aims of MoCDA, a platform that exhibits digital artworks for the purpose of documenting, collecting, and advancing a position of digital art. This exhibition provides, I hope, it will provide a theoretical and technical framework to better understand Marjan's career. Of course, now Marjan and I will be taking you on a virtual and interactive tour. So please follow us into the first room. Right, just let me know when you are all ready. I don't want to to lose some of you. So this room is entitled Embodiments and is dedicated to the digital illustrations and videos Marjan created from the 1980s to 2015. In these works, you see how she challenges any given sanitized understanding of the nature of digital bodies, reclaiming a central role for liquid identities in art and society. Marjan, this room is the perfect space to ask you whether you can tell us how you started working with digital tools. Can you tell us, something about that?
Yeah, actually, my first exhibited computer animation in the East Village in New York City, where I've lived all these years also, was done with a Commodore 64. Prior to that, in college, I'd worked on back supercomputers doing early animation and basic graphics. And so PMS was, the way I describe PMS is in 1988, I got my first Amiga. And so I literally went wild. But the way I always describe PMS, which I did in the late 1980s, is that at a time when most exhibited computer art was the work of male artists working with color cycle triangles and polygons, I was opening vaginas inside of the head. For me, that really captures how my approach was very much informed by the punk and no wave scene in the East Village and the neo-expressionism of both Italian painting in the 1980s and also East Village art. And I was bringing that art understanding into my style and approach to figuration, using digital tools to really do with bodies what art had not really been able to do previously due to the limitations of the tools.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of digital tools, of course, these have changed so quickly and so often over the years that I cannot help wondering how you, as a creative person, experience such abrupt developments in technology. Would you say that your approach to digital technology to make art was influenced by the limitations and possibilities that each tool offered to you, or not?
Absolutely. That's actually a really good question. If you look at the PMS animation, that's actually performance artist, East Village performance artist, Vava Vol. And what happened is I was using Sculpt and Animate 3D, which was an early 3D animation program on the Amiga, but I was really, because of the limitations of the technology at that time, I wasn't really able to model and or animate what I needed for this sort of vagina opening inside of a head. So I don't know how many of you have noticed it or not. It's digitized video of Vava Vol, who, by the way, was a really good makeup artist as well in terms of special effects makeup as a performance artist. And when she would perform, she was bald and she would do all this like paint all over her. So Vava and I actually turned Vava, that performer, into a wireframe. So that's actually a digitized video of Vava. And then I hand drew the vagina opening in her head frame by frame. But that's like a perfect example of limitations of technology really birthing this amazing collaboration with performance artist Vava and, influencing the work.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I always love to hear about, the stories behind the works, especially when they are so fascinating. Now, let's go quickly to the next work. Do you mind following me, please? So, given we are walking past Marjan avatar with fractals, I wonder if you could tell us, something about this work. For example, how did you make it, or even better, why did you make it?
Actually, we're jumping to the 1990s, and in the 1990s, I was doing all these sort of layered, animated fractals, which I was exhibiting as, early virtual reality head and also I did, projected canvases called Chaoscape, showing the landscape of early computer-generated fractals, which I was chopping up and animating in layers. And then I used to do a performance art piece. By the way, at the last minute, we took those shots of the performance art out because there was no room. But I did a performance piece where the same animations that I was doing were projected on me as I would contemplate Goss in a public meditation. And then in 1995, I did a online version with a series of GIF animations. So I made my 3D avatar. That's what I look like during the performance. If you see the photos, you'll see that's a total 3D recreation of what I was doing. So I made my own 3D avatar, and I projected the fractals in a 3D space and did them as a GIF animations. And that ended up on the website for the Launch.com Gallery and International Forum for the Digital Art, sponsored by Prodigy Inc., which was the #2 internet company back in 1996. And it was the 55 Broad Street New York Technology Center building. There were so many hits. It was kind of like a hit. This is a still from that era and that moment.
That was very fascinating.
3D rendering.
Yeah, I'm sure that the 90s must have been a very intense period of time for artists, interested in 3D modeling. I mean, even if even for someone who is not, an expert in 3D modeling, you can definitely see that the 90s was a very, I don't want to say, wild time in terms of experiments.
It was because I wasn't just creating art and showing it in the galleries, digital art at the time. I was an artist doing animation, and I worked in a lot of the early Silicon Alley companies, and it was a really exciting time in terms of the Internet 1.0, because we genuinely believed the Internet 1.0 revolution really was about our dream and our vision. But we were also, to some extent, very naive, because we didn't see what was going to come with the corporatization of information, with information silos, with the InfoWars, with privatization of public information and knowledge. And also, we didn't foresee what was coming in terms of conspiracy theories, mimetic contagion, and a lot of the things that are affecting us adversely today. So, like most dreamers, we only saw the utopian side. And just one other thing that I wanted to also add was that my installation and the performance was, talk about 90s, was in synesthesia, and I have the catalog for the show. It was the first major exhibit, computer art, in New York Soho Gallery District at that time, and it featured everyone from, H.R. Giger to even musicians like Future Sound of London to Jaron Lanier, father of virtual reality, was in that show. So it was quite a seminal exhibition. And just to let you know how exciting it was, for the opening, the lines for this exhibition went 10 blocks. People were standing in line for 10 blocks.
Oh my God.
Just to get a...
Amazing. Just amazing. All right, so let's go to the next work. Just please follow me. Just make yourself comfortable. By exploring traditional themes of Western art history, Marjan questions the male gaze and its persistent influence on the representation of not male bodies in the digital realm. In this room, you see many examples of this approach, from David and Goliath to Adoration of Sexting, the one on my right, both on display, of course, in this room. History of male representation in art, and I would say, in general, in context of visual culture.
Well, actually, this piece I did in 1998, like right after 96, I started to do more bald humanoids with fractal thermal pigmentation. I think it's interesting because, you know, so many people talk about crypto art and NFT art, which I also create and sell as well on Superware and other sites. It's about bald humanoids with, you know, wild textures. And my joke is always like, well, I was the queen of bald humanoids with wild textures back in the 1990s. The whole concept behind the series is, and I think I need to sort of contextualize it. Catherine Ailes's book on how we became post-human had first come out. So theoretically speaking, post-humanism was a major, major early influence. And I had this sort of interesting idea working with post-humanist philosophy of pairing in these sort of classical art historic mother and child type poses, humanoids with technological and mechanical extensions of the body as a way of recording the birth of humanity was being altered. A lot of these, by the way, so you're only seeing one. The collection consisted of many different pairings, including adoration of gas tank, which you're seeing here, adoration of Pac-Man, adoration of telephone, adoration of vibrator, and there were a whole bunch of different pieces. A lot of them were exhibited in SIGGRAPH galleries, by the way, and part of the SIGGRAPH Computer Art International traveling gallery, which toured museums back in to do these pairings. And I think with gas tank, I was showing motorcycles and the sort of the mechanical human behind this sort of post-humanist pairing. And here, of course, you know, humanity and the machine were rearranging the art historic mother and child or Madonna and child composition from classical painting.
Thank you. That was very interesting. So I think
my
that
personal favorite adoration of Pac-Man, but I just thought I mentioned that was my favorite. And
to be honest,
these adorations hang in my home.
To be very honest with all of you, it was very difficult to select only so few works by Marjan, because as you can imagine, she has so many amazing works that it was just very, very difficult to select, you know, only 20, 25 of them. Just one thing before going to the next room. Of course, you're very welcome to ask any questions if you want to Marjan or to me if you want. So yeah, just raise your hand and ask. Sorry, Marjan, I didn't hear you. Do you mind saying that again?
Oh, I was just.
Yeah, absolutely.
Venus and
yeah. Go.
Yeah, by the way, I don't know how many of you realize this or not, but most of these are animations. So if you click on them, of course, they will play. But so here we are, Filippo with Venus and Adonis, if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, sure. So in Venus and her muses, you envision a modern take on the classical Western art groupings of naked women seated around men. In this work, we see Venus and her harem of Adonises busy with a sexting session, a subversion of a traditional role given to women by male artists. I'm particularly interested in the intersection of digital technology and inversion of roles. Can you tell us more about this work and how it connects with your broader understanding of technology and gender?
Well, I think the only way I can really answer that question is, I don't know how many people know this or not, but I'm a political refugee and also an immigrant originally from Iran. And I fell in love with technology mostly because of this idea of progress and possibility, and not just as a way of advancing my own interests in terms of political freedom and socioeconomic equality, et cetera, and social justice, but also really opening up artistic spaces in ways that were not possible previously. And you're absolutely right that there was this long tradition going back to ancient Greece of, you know, great male creators having their muses in the form of very attractive women and females. And I think for me with this piece is I really wanted to update this piece and also additionally examine it from the perspective of a female, cisgender female in my case, and to do it in a way that incorporated everything that had happened since, not just in terms of equality for women, but also the way and manner in which women had to fight to open spaces for themselves creatively, artistically, culturally, and socially. So yeah, absolutely. There's a sexting session going on between Venus and her Adonises. And by the way, there is a large format print of this, which was like 90 inches, which was in my solo show at Locta. And it's the only place where I've been able to exhibit that piece. My Of Revolutions collection, which this is from, exhibited in lots of art centers, but no art center would show the large format of Venus and her Adonises because the embedded writing, there were two reasons why it was mixed. Reason number one is because I talked about my abortions in that piece and none of the art centers wanted to have anything to do with that. And the second reason is that embedded in the Adonises were dick pics, and they said they cannot show any artwork with fully erect penises in. No, so I thought I'd mention that. I brought up the point that art, historically speaking, there's tons of vaginas in museums, but apparently there's a ban on fully erect penises.
Not yet. Okay, cool. So as you see, this room features many works. If you have any questions for Marjan about the works you see in this room, please feel welcome to ask now. Otherwise, you know, you can just ask at the end of the presentation. I have just one suggestion for you. Of course, now we are moving to the next room, but please feel welcome to come back and take a closer look later, because as you have probably noticed, most of these works are animations, and you know you can't enjoy them in just a few seconds. If you have, you know, just take your time, relax, and take a look at each work, because each of them deserves your attention and focus. Right. So the moment, I suppose we can move to the next room. So please follow me. So this room is dedicated to glitch goddesses. A female role is distorted to the bad piece of art history with an amorphous embodiment that uses digital plasticity to range from slender to heavy, pregnant, young, old, abstract, stylized, and glitched. The work thematically connects the first room and the third. The digital sculpture, the one next to me, besides offering an insightful take on the representation of female bodies shaped after male desires and needs since the Paleolithic, was placed in art fairs and fashion shows thanks to mixed reality. Marjan, can you tell us more about how you discovered the mixed reality? I'd like to learn more about your specific interest in merging virtual works and videos taken in traditional exhibition spaces.
Yeah, well, I had started the Art Hacks in 2016, and I think I can talk a little bit more about the whole history of the Art Hacks and what they were about in the next room. But with the Glitch Goddess, I was already hacking my art and shot exhibition footage of art fairs and art exhibitions starting in 2016 as a conceptual net art project that was designed to radicalize curation and democratize the exhibition space. And I was doing these sort of mixed reality hacks and posting them on Instagram. And in 2018, one of them had already gone viral. And then I had this sort of idea of doing the Glitch Goddess. And the whole idea of the Glitch Goddess is she glitches the existing ideas that a woman is a singular form rooted in art historic depictions of females. And so she goes, unfortunately, with the sculpture in Decentraland, I could not export the 3D version I have. So she's a singular body here. But in the videos on the walls, you can see her go from young to old to slender to pregnant to stylized to abstract and also glitched as a type of contemporary digital embodiment. And I turned the style of animation that I've innovated as chronometric sculpture because it blends the ideals of animation with that of sculpture. And so the first version of Glitch Goddess I did, which was the Glitch Goddess of Art Fest in Miami with Picasso in 2018, went viral with millions of views. And she, there were so many women commenting on her because the voiceover on top of that art hack was about inequality in the art world for women artists. And so many women commented on it that I sort of proceeded to use the Glitch Goddess in several other art hacks. Yes, Filippo?
No, sorry. I was saying that, something that in fact struck me when I watched one of the interventions of Glitch Goddess for the first time is in fact how she looks relaxed, at ease, I would say, compared to the real environments where you placed it. Like her bright colors and the curvy figure look much more enjoyable than the pale surroundings, as if it was the video of a physical exhibition space to be out of place, slow, and let's say doomed to be left behind by digital language. So I wonder, to what degree do you consider the relation between the Glitch Goddess and the exhibition spaces in terms of confrontation? I just can't help but think it's like seeing a predator eating a prey. Too slow to keep up with it.
That's actually a really good question, Filippo, because I think something that I work with a lot in my mixed reality art hacks and interventions is this sort of idea of, art, let me just backtrack. Michel Foucault, the French philosopher, had this term for art of the museum spaces as a way of describing how 20th century artists were doing work after paintings they would see in museums. So you had like Picasso doing entire suites and variations after Velázquez, de Kooning doing, Netherlandish altarpieces, etc. So I had this sort of concept that in our world today, increasingly art is seen on the internet. It's seen on your Instagram feed. It's seen on Twitter. It's seen on Facebook. And so the idea is, what is a physical exhibition? It's just an excuse to deliver, documentation footage for social media. And so by hacking my work into it, I was working with two ideas. Oftentimes enough physical works, and you pointed this out really well, physical works don't perform very well in low quality, video and still images with social media compression as they do physically in person. And so I'm always operating from an advantage when I'm using 3D CG and mixed reality, because I can deliver specifically for video content on social media in a way that outperforms physical media. So on a lot of levels, yes, the design of Glitch Goddess in terms of her color scheme and the op art design was geared specifically to perform very well at low resolutions with codec artifacting from social media, etc. So yeah, I factor in a lot of those technical things. But here's an interesting thing that happened. I was not aware of it when I was working, but that's what's so great about showing work on the internet, how other people make you realize what you're doing. And so many people commented that Glitch Goddess was like Nikita Saint-Paul. And I was like, of course, you know, it never occurred to me when I was working on her that working with these bold, stripy things was actually similar to Nikita Saint-Paul, who, by the way, is having a huge retrospective of her art for the first time in New York City, which is really strange because she actually grew up in New York City, but was never really shown in New York City until 2021. So there you go. It takes women a very long time to get, it takes women artists a very long time to get shows in New York.
To be recognized. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah, actually the way it works in the traditional contemporary art world is young, brilliant men are rewarded, and women are rewarded when they're very old for persistence. So that's generally speaking the way it works.
Right. Please let me know if you had any questions. You can ask. You know, you can just talk.
Yeah, actually, somebody asked if every work is oriented to females only. No, actually, a lot of the works that you don't see in this show, I've done a lot of pieces like my David and Goliath and shot in Iran. I actually, for a while, was known for my buff males, as they were called. So I've done a lot of pieces with males and a lot of art hacks also that are not necessarily with female figures. So I think one of the things that may have happened is to tie together the show thematically. You know, Filippo really went for a lot of the pieces that spoke to the female experience within digital art because of its underrepresentation, et cetera. I mean, there's many reasons to take that angle, but I do have a lot of pieces that are not at all female-centered. Somebody pointed out that the age and gender has no relationship in the current world, and you know, I'd like to think that's the case, and I think with with online media and online culture, there's definitely a lot more spaces. But in terms of the traditional contemporary art world and how work is evaluated and exhibited, I think that age and gender still, unfortunately, make a difference.
All right. Okay. So thank you, Marjan. That was very interesting. I really like this room. Now, shall we enter the third and the last room? Yes, just follow me. Thank you. So Marjan has been hacking digital bodies into found and shot exhibition footage online since 2016 as a way of democratizing, sorry for my bad English, the exhibition space in addition to intervening with a critical discourse. Named art hacks, so a term that, of course, Marjan mentioned earlier, these interventions invade the mediated version of IRL reality with vibrant, colorful, animated 3D models that look like they are the ambassadors of a new reality, the digital one, that is too energetic for our traditional understanding of what constitutes a display of works. As you see, 3D models are displayed next to video documentations of the interventions Marjan did over the years in a way that both preserve, I hope, their original site specificity and let us enjoy the technical skill of Marjan. Marjan, I know you termed this approach which blends the ideals of animation with that of sculpture as chronometric sculptures. Can you please Could you please tell us more about it? I'm particularly interested in the first half of the term chronometric.
Yeah, I lost some of your audio, Filippo, but yeah. The whole idea with chronometric sculpture is that what I do, and I had to sort of kind of come up with a whole new pipeline for doing it too, which is my own sort of proprietary pipeline. But what I do is I obviously use mocap, but I also use post-to-post animation and post-to-post animation tools and techniques. And additionally, I use dynamics and simulations as well. And the piece that I think we're standing in front of, non-binary nude glitch, was Gagosian Gallery in 2016 had a landmark survey of 100 years of the nude in art on Madison Avenue. And it was like 3 floors of like the rock stars of art from the last 100 years, from Picasso to Jean-Michel Basquiat, Francis Bacon, de Kooning, etc. And but the exhibition, the landmark survey of the nude, had no digital nude in it, and it also had no nude non-binary. And I always said that my art hacks were not just about hacking my art into exhibitions, but also intervening with a critical discourse and truly intervening. I mean, in my case, with what I was doing here, was I was creating a correction to the 100 years of the nude in art by literally bringing into that dialogue what the curators had left out, which was digital and non-binary. And so the non-binary nude glitch was literally born as a glitch, and it's a common glitch that happens with mocap, where part of the body gets away from the rest of the body. And the second I saw that glitch, I had the idea of creating that whole piece based on that. And so I went back and remodeled the figure and exaggerated that glitch and added many other elements to it to sort of create this idea of translocation as embodiment within the same digital body.
Thank you, Marjan. That was very interesting. I'm sorry you missed part of my question, but you answered it perfectly. Looking at your interventions, I wonder whether you feel the sculptors become art, and in particular the disruptive art, only when they are digitally placed into exhibition footage. In other words, when viewers look at works as non-binary nude, should they enjoy it both as sculpt and agents of disruption, or the video documentation is the, let's say, correct way to experience it, to enjoy it?
Well, I think that I've done other versions of non-binary nude glitch. I did the fractal for the Wrong Digital Art Biennial in 2017. I just redid another version of the non-binary nude glitch for Super Chief NFT Gallery. The show opens later this month, and that's with a GANscape, or AI GAN generated landscape. So I do versions of all of my figural works as mixed reality art hacks, like you mentioned, but I also do pieces that are standalone in virtual or 3D scenes and or environments as well. Which one is better? I mean, to me, they're completely different approaches. I think the mixed reality works are really about public exhibition within the social. And then the animations I create with 3D CG environments is really about creating almost like an animated painting in 3D CG. But like I said, actually it's Super Cheap NFT with the GANscape. That's an NFT. That's going to be opening, I believe, later in June. And I just wanted to mention that I'm in the history of the first IRL museum exhibition, History of NFT Art, opening also June 10th this week in Linz, Austria, at the Photo and Media Arts Museum there. And there's going to be a crypto voxels version as well. I just thought I'd mention that.
That's a great achievement. You did right mentioning it. Speaking of which, your art hacks took place in commercial galleries and art fairs from Milan to New York. can you tell us why you target these specific exhibition venues? Should we feel a sort of revenge against traditional art spaces? You already mentioned this area, but I would like you to tell more about this, if you can.
Well, I think I approach things from a very artistic and digital place. So for me, physical boundaries are not definitive in the way that they might be for a physical painter and or sculptor. I'm already kind of, to me, it's sort of like video footage of an exhibition. It's just data. It's no different than any other visual content that I work with as an artist on a regular basis. So I think it's really a combination. I mean, I'm first and foremost an artist, so I don't deal with boundaries. I'm an explorer. I'm always looking for new things, and I approach things from. I try to approach things from a very free place. I don't have an agenda. I'm interested in exploring and having a dialogue and a conversation, and sometimes also intervening, as I have with these artifacts. I think digital plasticity and the philosophy of digital art to have this sort of free approach to everything, not as material boundaries, but digital possibilities.
No, that's very interesting. What you just said reminded me the first collage by Dada artists. The fact that they used images, they used pictures and photos they found on in magazines, advertising posters and so on, and they made these works that of course took somehow into consideration the value of the pictures they collected, but at the same time it was of course part of the game, let's say, the fact that they could choose, they could put, I don't know, the face of a very famous politician next to, I don't know, next to the advertising of the soup, for example. So I suppose that this approach to images in general is something that somehow ties digital artists with, with a tradition, let's say, of modern and contemporary artists who have been challenging the power of of images through revaluation and remixing. So no, thank you, Marjan. That was very interesting. I think I run out of questions. So thank you, Marjan, for answering. That was a very interesting tour, and I wonder whether
just one quick. I think there was a question. There were questions I wanted to answer.
Oh,
the
yes.
Lourdes
Yes,
in this
please.
room is the Lourdes in this room. Lourdes was born in 2019 Art Basel Miami Art Hack, which actually is in room 2. You can see it. But I did crypto art NFT versions of Super Rare, both sold. And each sort of figural work I have in terms of chronometric sculpture, I'm just sort of talking about Lourdes because somebody brought it up in chat. Each one has a slightly different approach. It's chronometric sculpture. So non-binary nude glitch, for instance, is translocation within the body. And with the glitch Odalisque, and you see a still sculpture of her in the room, and you should see the glitch Odalisque at the Whitney Art Hack also in this room. Firm in her location, she retains her location. So as a Odalisque or a harem girl, she's all about sexual exhibitionism and disruption of that within the same exact footprint. Now, Lourdes is really interesting because Lourdes is my most surrealistic figure, and she's all about intersection within the same body. So her body in her drop, which is metaphoric and literal in her case, because her body parts drop. In that drop, she intersects her own body and exaggerated surrealistic forms.
Thank you, Marjan, for the explanation. That was great. It was a pleasure to learn more about your research and walk through the rooms of this exhibition with you and, of course, our visitors. Again, I recommend all of you to go back and get a closer look at its work, because, as I said earlier, each of them deserves, not just a few seconds. If you could play each video, each animation, and spend more time than the usual, let's say, this exhibition, I'd love. I'd love to stay here and and ask any of your questions. I will be around, so please be welcome to.
I was just going to answer one last question we had, Filippo. We have one more question I was going to answer, and the idea.
Oh yes, the idea for absolutely.
Our French orchid, although in French, Besset has other slang connotations as well. Besset Mary Boone, this is the NFT or crypto art version. So I basically redid the original 2018 art hack, which went viral with millions of views all over the world on top Instagram and Facebook art channels. I redid it. And this one sold to the Momus collection on Super Rare, by the way, last February. But I redid it with collage paintings in the back. But the idea behind the KISS was, I guess I really wanted to sort of free myself from some of the other ideas that I was working with in my chronometric sculpture to really expand, the technique. And so I had this idea of interoception, which is a way of visualizing or externalizing internal function. And I wanted to really explore a completely different way of acting an animated figure using my chronometric sculpture, but from a place that was really informed by physical sensations and pleasure. And at the same token, the whole sort of drama of love and sex, the terror of it, the anxiety of it, this of it, the want of it, the lust of it, and to bring all of that somehow into embodiment form in my style and with my technique of chronometric sculpture. And the KISS is really what that was about. I think every generation has to sort of define how humanity is changing in their time through their style of figuration. And for me, these styles of figuration that I employ is basically how I see the way we are changing, and that embodiment. And what I try to embody in my work is these states of being, and what I try to convey through my works is also not just the identity ideas, but also the states of being. So for me, the KISS more than anything else is the state of being of that experience.
Someone said that we would love to see work like this at Burning Man somehow. So that's something for the future, Marjan. All right, so thanks again for visiting the exhibition. Again, we'll be around, so please feel welcome to stop by, ask questions, and again, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your visit. Thank you. And thank you, Marjan. That was amazing. Thank you again.
All the work you did on this show, and also Decentraland. And thank you so much for everyone who came.
Thanks again.